It's Tuesday, June 11th, 2013, live from the Technology Studios in rural Pickens, South Carolina. Hello, friends. I'm Matthew TG.
We're so rural, all our water comes from a well. I'm Heath Mullican.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Technology Show. This is a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. This is episode 206.
And you need to go, not right now, but in a few minutes, or you can open up another tab. You can open it up another tab, and you can enter our contest to win the Theologian trading cards. We want to thank Zondervan for sponsoring this giveaway. I think we're giving away three boxes of these. Go to thetechnologyshow.com/giveaway, and you can find out about people like Maximus, the Confessor.
Oh, yes.
Power forward, averaged 10 points a game for the early Byzantine Empire.
10 points a debate.
So,
10 points per sermon.
So how is the scoring system on that?
I don't know. That's a really good question. But he played well in game two.
Yeah, this is the problem with off-the-cuff stuff, right? Yeah, people want details. Okay, so let me tell a little story here. Matthew's already heard this, and people know that I love Apple products, and it's because of my experience with how they, how they last, or how Apple backs up their products. This thing right here, bought in 2007, a year ago, my daughter, this was Nicole's, she was swimming, and they got done swimming, and it was at the bottom of the pool. And so she gets it, and she brings it home, and the screen is going, blap, 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 blap. Things are not well. So I throw it into rice, you do the whole thing. Yeah. Well, the screen just, it would come back, but it was dark. It sat on that shelf as a display.
Yeah.
And I picked it up 2 weeks ago. I thought, well, I wonder. I turned it on. The display's beautiful.
Yeah.
But the volume's not good. So I hook it up to iTunes. I reset it.
Yeah.
Factory settings. Volume works great. The thing is absolutely flawless in the way that it works now, man. It took a dive in the pool. So another great Apple story.
Yes.
Right. And for those that don't care about Apple,
So we've had similar things with my wife's phone, but it hasn't been the swimming pool that it's dropped in. It's been the toilet.
Oh, dear.
Let me tell a story on her. She may be listening today. She listened last week.
Oh, goodness.
In the span of a week, it went in the toilet 2 times.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's frustrating.
We call that a gift. That's a gift there. All right.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah. All right. Let's get on with our interview today. I want to introduce to our listeners Luke Gilkerson. Luke Gilkerson is the Internet Community Manager at CovenantEyes, where he oversees the company's blog and social media channels. Before this, he worked as a campus minister for 6 years at the University of Toledo. He has a BA in philosophy and religious studies and is working on his MA in religion. Luke is married to Tricia, and they live with their 4 boys in the great state. Yeah, 4. There's some tax deductions in the great state of Michigan. Hey, Luke, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Now, real quick, Luke, we do have listeners who live in the Michigan area, so I need to know what part of the state are you?
Okay, so
I guess that's,
There we go.
I'm all turned around. I'm right in the middle of the palm, pretty much.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now who's the comedian who talks about this? He said that only Michigan does this, so no one else has.
No one else can. I mean, how do you form South Carolina with your hand, Tony? Go ahead.
Have no idea.
Yeah.
All right.
We are the Mitten State.
Yeah. Well, Luke, we appreciate you taking time out of what we know is a busy schedule to be with us. Some of our viewers now, I've known about CovenantEyes for quite a few years now. As a matter of fact, I have someone who's accountable to me, so I get a report. But some of our viewers may have never heard of CovenantEyes, so take some time out, talk about the history and how CovenantEyes came to be, and then just the concerns that you're working with.
Sure. Well, CovenantEyes started 13 years ago, in the year 2000. It's named after Job 31, the verse in Job 31 where it says, "And I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully on a woman." And so what happened was about 13 years ago, our founder, his name is Ron DeHaas, and he was really concerned about his teenage sons who were getting online and exploring the internet for the first time. He was really exploring the internet for the first time, and he did not like what he was seeing. way too much easy access to pornography and other sexually explicit stuff on the internet. And he said, well, what can I do about this? He looked at different filtering programs, different kinds of blocking technology, and he was just not satisfied with whatever he found. A lot of times it was over blocking, it was under blocking.
Yeah.
But his main concern was it wasn't just how it worked. His big concern was how it was not really preparing his children for the real world. This is something where, if you're constantly guarded and guided by the fences that you're penned in, he says, well, then they're not going to be prepared for a world without fences, without filters.
Right.
So he wanted to figure out a way to have a good conversation with his kids about what they were seeing and what they were doing on the internet. So this is where he pioneered the idea of internet accountability software, where it would monitor everywhere you go online, and then it would send a report to someone that you know and that you trust. So, for instance, like for him, he wanted to be able to monitor where his kids were going and then be able to use that information in a way to have a discussion with his teenage sons about what they were doing that was appropriate or inappropriate. And so that's not just for pornography, obviously. This is for all the gray areas online. And anymore, in the last 13 years, since we started, there are even more gray areas than there ever have been.
Wow.
And so this is something that has been a useful tool for parents. It's also a very useful tool for adults. A lot of adults use CovenantEyes because they want to be held accountable themselves, to their spouse or to a mentor or to a good friend at church or whatever. So that's where CovenantEyes started.
Yeah, I had a gentleman come to me, a gentleman in the church, and it was about 8 years ago, and he just said to me, I want to confess that I was someplace on the internet, I didn't belong there. And I need to get into some kind of accountability. And I had heard about CovenantEyes, had never visited it or used it, but I said, well, there's this particular thing. Well, that's the way he decided to go, so I get a weekly report. And he said to me, it's all I needed. He said, now I always know that there is someone that knows where I'm going on the internet. And he said, it's the only accountability I've needed. And he said, that temptation has just been taken away from me.
It really is amazing, and that's the thing. I think when you go online, I think it's easy to get tunnel vision because it's just you and a screen, and it's just so easy to believe that what you're doing on that screen doesn't impact the rest of the world around you, doesn't impact your offline life, and it's so when you have that little reminder that someone's going to see where you go, it reminds you that you live in a world where what you do online does matter, and it keeps all your attitudes in check. It's a wonderful tool, especially to escape those temptations.
Sure.
Luke, one of the things we celebrate on the show is technology, and certainly one of the crown jewels of technology is the internet, but we also recognize that the internet provides just this massive portal for pornography.
Oh, yeah.
How much of internet traffic is pornography, and what are some of the aspects of that that CovenantEyes is concerned with?
Well, one of the most recent studies I've seen on this suggests that about 1 in 8 searches that are done online are for something erotic.
Wow.
Now, for some people, they hear that and they think that doesn't sound like much. For some people, they think that sounds like a lot. But if you were to sit down, you yourself were to sit down, and every time you got in front of a Google search bar, every 8th time you searched for something pornographic, you'd be seeing a whole lot of porn in your life.
Yeah.
And so that is a lot of searches that are done online. 1 in 5, even more than that, 1 in 5 mobile searches are for pornography. And so we know that there's a lot of activity going on pornographic websites. At last count, well over 42,000 of the top million websites in the world are sexual in nature, which each of those websites then has hundreds or even thousands of images and videos and that kind of stuff. So the internet is saturated with pornography, to be sure. But the real concern isn't that it's available, mostly because we can't do anything about that. We can't do much about the availability of the porn. But what we can do is about how people interact with it and how people are tempted by it. It's not only available, it's affordable too. It's they estimate maybe 80 to 90% of the people who look at porn online only look at the free material.
Yeah.
And there's tons of free material out there.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the stats on this, and there's been a number of studies that have come out, over 90% of boys and over 60% of girls see porn before the age of 18. And so we're talking about teens whose minds and brains and sexual attitudes are still in very much developing.
Yes.
Many of them seeing porn before before they become an adult. And a lot of this stuff is totally degrading and violent as well. Over 80% of boys and over 55% of girls see images online of group sexuality. And so this is before the age of 18. And they're seeing all kinds of other stuff too. And then when they become young adults, this is where all the hinges come off. 65 to 70% of young adult men admit to viewing porn multiple times a month, many times weekly. And this is true for 30% of young women as well. What's the concern here? I mean, there's a lot of concerns. My friend Sam Black, he wrote a book. He works with me here in the office. He wrote a book that we just made available on our website a couple weeks ago called The Porn Circuit. And it deals with questions of how pornography impacts the mind and impacts the brain. Talks about the neurochemicals and neurotransmitters that drive our sexuality in the brain and how those get hijacked and warped by pornography. And I recommend your listeners go check it out.
Yeah, give us the title again.
It's called The Porn Circuit. If you go to our website, you can go down in the footer of our website. You'll see a thing that says ebooks. All the ebooks are for free. You can download any of them. One of them is called The Porn Circuit. It deals with these sort of the neurochemical side of pornography. So he talks about things like dopamine and testosterone and norepinephrine and oxytocin, all these things, and how those things are meant to work from the standpoint of how we were created or designed, but then how pornography comes in and hijacks those things and over-sexualizes the brain. And so there's major concerns there, especially for, like I said before, young people who are seeing porn, whose brains are still in tender development. You've got huge impacts on sexual beliefs and expectations. How it increases an attraction to casual sex. It lowers people's view of women, desensitizes people to cruelty. This is probably one of the most startling things. In online pornography, 88% of scenes in porn films contain acts of physical aggression.
Wow.
And so this is how people are, when you think about it from a parental perspective, is this the kind of sexual education you want your children to be having?
Wow. Sure.
Alone for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or 5 hours on the computer when you're not watching, and them getting this indoctrination and learning about what sexuality is from people who are crafting it in a movie studio somewhere where they're making this highly fabricated kind of sexual scene, or even just for that matter, how it actually decreases people's sexual drive for actual marital sexuality. It's really kind of it's startling when you see the stats that are coming out on this, and a number of our ebooks on our website talk about all that.
One of the things that I was thinking of here is there are a lot of people who know my story. I've said that as a young boy. I mean, I regret to say this, but I was raised around pornography, and one of the things that is different. I mean, I'm 49 years old now. One of the things that was different is I lived in a home where a stepfather had trunks of Playboy magazine. Well, what was portrayed back in the 70s in those magazines is far removed from what's being portrayed and what people have access to on the internet now, and creating an appetite that a marital relationship is never going to be able to fulfill.
Oh yeah. And people, this is probably the saddest part of my job, I think, is getting comments from wives. When we get them weekly, in emails, phone calls,
sure.
I mean, all kinds of women calling in who just feel like, I cannot compete with this. And, the reality is they can't. Not because they themselves, I mean, they could be beautiful women by any standard you put up there. But it doesn't matter because what men have trained themselves with is a variety of women. It's one woman after the next.
Yeah.
It's an endlessly clickable, endlessly customizable. Yeah. And real people aren't so clickable and customizable. And so this is, and no matter what standard you place up there of beauty, one woman does not compete with a harem of women. Wow. And that's what these women are feeling like. They feel like, I can't compete with this. I can't keep up with this. And so their husbands have kind of been drowning in this stuff, and they don't know what to do about it. And I was it wasn't too long ago the study came out, 56% of divorce cases involve one partner having, quote, an obsessive interest in pornographic websites. Wow. So over half of divorce cases today you see coming into the courts are dealing with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I got 3 questions. Based on
yeah.
So a couple of things that I've thought about. I'm going to hijack from behind the producers where nobody sees me there. I have to look at you guys, and you don't know where I'm going with this. First of all, the book that you're talking about in the circuitry, what's exciting is that this isn't just the Christian world that's catching on to this. We reported a story a while back. We actually showed a video that was produced by non-believers, but who were saying, this is a problem. We're actually rewiring the chemistry and the circuitry of our brains on this. So that's something to be excited about in that way, to say, hey, the world might be catching on with this. This is a message we've been preaching for a while. How can we partner with people to say, yeah, let's change this culture? One of the things that I noticed that we pointed out is that, we say we can't stop it. And that's just the case. The crusade isn't to go and make it all go away. I mean, we've had this discussion before, Tony, you and I.
Sure.
Every new medium ever introduced to man is going to be corrupted. We are sinful people. We are skewed to sin because of our sin nature. It's just going to be that way. And talk about the records and books and stuff like that.
A couple stories I've told in the past, Luke. Number one, I had my own darkroom set, so I was studying the history of photography to find out that a lot of the innovations in photography were brought about through pornography way back in the 1800s, and you hate that, but it's the way it is. And secondly, I've got this, I inherited from my grandfather this old record player. It's a crank, 78 RPM, and it wasn't even his. He bought this farmhouse. It was just there and all the records, and so he never did anything with it. Well, I got it years ago, and so I'm starting to pull out records and begin to play them. Some of those records are pornographic.
Wow.
And so while God has created this beautiful structure in creation, sin will take that in directions that don't honor the Lord, and all these mediums.
And so the church sometimes gets into the okay, this is a bad thing. Shut it down. No television in the house. I've got a guy who used to sell TVs. He used to own a general supply store here in the area, and he would talk about how when our Wesleyan church would have a revival, everybody would come back and they'd say, "John, can I bring you back my TV? I need to bring it back." And he said that'd last about 1 to 2 months. Yeah. And then they'd be back in the store and they'd be ready to buy their TV set again because it was, you can't have it in the house. Is what was being preached. But that's. It's not that. It's how do we be in this world and live differently in it. And that's why I appreciate what this is trying to do.
CovenantEyes.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of what Matthew just asked, Luke, one of the questions in the chat room is your company, is the software automated, or are you, as a member of CovenantEyes, working on the stuff? Is there any way in the company that you guys, by helping others, I guess by exposing these things, are you guys susceptible to the same thing? Or is the software automated? So like Tony's talking about, he's got an accountability, a guy's accountable to him. Is that stuff that comes across your desk, or is it automated where you're kind of separated from what people are seeing? Does that make any sense?
That makes a lot of sense. No, that's a great question. It's both, actually. Most of what happens in terms of how, well, I should back up here a second. What we do is we rate every website the way that video games are rated or movies are rated. So we have 6 different age-based ratings. And what happens is most of those, well, I should say all of those are generated automatically. However, of course, like any system, it needs to be tweaked. It needs to be adjusted. New websites are coming out every couple seconds. You've got new ways websites are being built. And so all of that stuff has to be built by people. Wow. And so while there's teams of people who work on the rating system itself and trying to refine it and always trying to make it better and better, there are a few people who are on our rating team who basically handle rating change requests. So people will get a rating on a report. They say, I think this is too high or this is too low.
Right.
And then they can submit a request. And then there are actual people who will view some of those websites and check that stuff. I think right now there's 4 women who are on that team. And there have been times, yes, where they are, and of course, the vast majority of times they're not subjected to, really nasty stuff. But there have been times where they have been. In fact, we've had our chaplain here at CovenantEyes. He runs a lot of our counseling services here in the building and stuff like that. He's actually talked to them at times about this kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Because it can get. And the thing is, that's one of the unfortunate natures of it. Is someone in the end has to, in order to tweak it, has to be exposed to it at some time or another. But obviously, that takes a special kind of person.
Yeah.
Wow.
I recently attended a conference. It was just last week. It was the denominational conference where they brought Christian educators in, and these educators were in religion departments. But I was blown away because basically what I picked up from these educators was that they now they just simply take the position that with incoming college students that they are viewers of internet pornography. And that part of our responsibility is to bring that to light and to bring accountability into their lives. I'm just curious for you to react to that and kind of what you're hearing out there.
Absolutely. It's the exact same thing I have heard. We have, and I've heard it across the denominational spectrum too.
Sure.
Largest Anglican school in the world is down in Sydney, Australia. They've used CovenantEyes now down there for years. And they make it optional for any of their faculty or students to use it. Now they have, I think, something like over 50% of their faculty and students use it.
Wow.
As voluntarily use it.
Okay.
And they did that for the exact same reason. They said, we do not assume that this is something that is just a kind of a minority problem. This is something where students are dealing with this coming in on some level or another. Some students are entrenched in it. Some are tempted by it. There are some who've been exposed to it and they don't want to be exposed to it again. And so, but on some level, they're dealing with it.
Wow.
If the stats are accurate, they know they're dealing with it on some level. So now we're seeing where these students are getting together into accountability groups and clusters, and they're talking to one another and they're helping one another. We even heard the same thing from Catholic universities. There's a largest Catholic seminary in the U.S. has been using CovenantEyes now for 7 years. All their students use it, and they do this for the same reason. They are trying to nip the problem in the bud while they're in school, because they know these guys are going to come out, and for different schools, they're going to become priests, they're going to become pastors, they're going to become spiritual leaders of some kind, and a lot of them are going into seminary porn addicted, going out porn addicted, even worse, and now they're going to go try to lead other people.
Right.
And they're saying this can't happen. This is completely undermining people's ministries.
Yeah, this is a good point. Yeah, it's a good point because the college is going to be kind of like that last gate and that last opportunity for their before they're launched into their careers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then once they're there, we talk to pastors who deal with this, and you think it's hard for a man to confess this to a friend. It's almost when it comes to a spiritual leader, a pastor, an elder, or whoever to do this, it is terrifying because they're afraid of losing their ministries.
Yeah.
They're afraid of losing their pulpits. They're afraid of losing their livelihood. They have no idea what the reaction is going to be. Now, some pastors, they've come out, they've dealt with it. Their congregations and the leaders around them have been very forgiving. They put them on leave for a while, and they help them deal with it, and they come back, and it's all good. There's been some very gracious congregations. Other times, they just don't know what to do with it, and so they just dismiss the guy. Sometimes it's somewhere in between, but it is very scary for someone in ministry to deal with this.
Yeah.
So, in the part of our discussion, we talked about how you mentioned that CovenantEyes about 13 years ago. You said it really got started. The technology world that CovenantEyes lives in is so rapid and so changing. How and what have some of the challenges been as we transition into what is now, I think, being dubbed more than just by Apple as the post-PC world, as we've got computers in our pockets now that we carry around all day long. That you can have anywhere, that are always connected to the internet, no matter what. How has that changed, and what has the challenges been of keeping up and adapting to, a just constant change of technology?
Great question.
Well, we've had to really build our technology team here, big time, because you're talking about not just. I mean, yeah, it's true. In 13 years ago, the PC. That's what we were focusing on.
Right.
Yep. In fact, we didn't come out with accountability services for Mac until much later than that. And then, we've always added, even in that short 13 years, we've always added stuff for the PC first in terms of features and stuff like that. Since the last 4 or 5 years or so, everything has shifted. It's been a seismic shift, even the way people think about getting online. And so now you've got, now we've had to develop accountability apps for Android tablets and phones. We've had to develop accountability browser, which is we're about to add filtering to it for iOS devices, so iPhones and iPads and iPod touches. And of course, with all that comes not just people to develop the technology that's sometimes totally new, but you've also had to deal with all the let's say the customer service changes and stuff like that too, because we have free customer service for any of our members. They can call in. People love our customer service people, but they all have to be trained on each device and how it works so it can be a real stretch. So a lot of that's just adding more people who know what they're doing, and so that's been a big stretch for us. But
sure.
We have to stay. We're kind of riding the wave of technology,
right?
And sometimes we feel like we're way too behind the wave because anymore technology comes out way too fast. Sometimes to deal with it. Heck, we were just looking on. It's like I think they shut it down. There was the Google Glass app.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They were going to make it was a porn app for Google Glass. And I'm like, oh great, do we have to invent something for that too? Now I think they took it out of the App Store, but at the same time, it's like it's not going to be long. Porn companies are going to find some way, like you guys were saying.
With Google Glass's direct connection to your eye, though, that just creates such a great marketplace for Covenant Eyes. I mean, it's like beaming this little light right into your eye from the upper corner. What a market to be in.
Here's what I was trying to work this out for the advantage of our show. So if, Luke, you have to start wearing Google Glass as part of development there, then you have to come on this show and talk about it.
Yes, I will do that for sure.
Luke, for years, pornography has been presented as a problem primarily for men, but more and more studies are showing that this is becoming a bigger issue for women. So what does Covenant Eyes understand about that issue?
Oh, man, it impacts women in a huge way. Like I said before, 60% of girls are seeing porn before they turn 18. And other studies indicate that it's about 1 in 3 women use pornography on an occasional basis, and nearly 1 in 5 women are spending time every single week online for sexual purposes. And so we try to help them as much as we try to help the men who use their services. So, for instance, we have women who use Covenant Eyes. They have accountability partners just like the men do. But we also really try to resource women with good education about this. Women have got to know. This is so key. Women have got to know that they are not struggling with a man's struggle. They're struggling with a human struggle. This is a human problem. And because it's cast as a male struggle, the difficulties of trying to talk about this and confess this are often very awkward for a woman. And so we have a number of things we do on our blog. We have articles coming out all the time about women and pornography, temptations, and lust. One of our regular authors, Jessica Harris, a friend of mine, she does a great job writing about this subject. She runs a ministry called Beggar's Daughter, which is just to women who are dealing with sexual struggles and temptations. Another friend of mine, Crystal Renault, I did a webinar with her probably about a year ago. We did a man-woman perspective on pornography addiction. She runs a ministry called Dirty Girls Ministries, and dealing with lust-related issues. So we're constantly trying to put out information on this because it's the information that's what disarms people, and they realize, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one dealing with this. This is something that that a lot of women deal with, actually. I mean, that's not just this, small group of perverts somewhere. Sure. This is like, this is a whole, and this is women in the church who are dealing with this.
Wow. Hey, Luke, so let me do a little bit of office work live here. I would, seriously, I would love to bring them on one of our podcasts. So if you could send me some contact them first, make sure it's okay, but send me some contact information. We would love to have them on the show and talk about that, because this is, we have noted some studies, and I think you have brought in a dimension I hadn't even thought of, and that is that the problem is compounded if you're saying to women, well, this is a male problem, but you have rightly put this where it belongs. It's a human problem.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just, it's a human problem. And it's not just, when you think about it there's a couple ways this can happen, right? You've got women who are viewing it and kind of getting entrenched in it. But then you've got the women who are dating the men who are entrenched in it. Oh, yeah. And then they feel they have to keep up with it. Yeah. They're sort of constantly immersed in this pornified culture that is driving all sorts. It's not, of course, it's not just pornography. Pornography is just the big tip of a very ugly iceberg. Right. This media iceberg that's constantly giving messages about what real beauty is and what real sexiness is. And so women are influenced by that as well. And they're being brought into it just as much. Even pressured to feel like, well, the guys who are doing this is normal. I have no right to protest this at all. This is just what men do. And nothing could be further from the truth.
I want to go back to something that you brought up. I think you bring up a valid point. You were talking about it, if a pastor somehow it's revealed that they're having an issue with pornography and all, how problematic that can be. So I'm going to say something that for some will be a bit controversial, but I think that for those of us especially that are part of denominations and we have a judicatory, a structure within our denomination, I think that, for instance, we have a district here, and so there are probably 100 pastors under our care. I think that we have got to get pastors together in a group, and we've got to communicate them from a leadership point of view that this is a safe place. If you're struggling with this, we want to know. Yeah. We're not going to throw you under the bus. As a matter of fact, our position is, we're going to come alongside you, and we're going to provide that accountability. And I think that, unfortunately, sometimes the church is the last place where people feel safe. I'm just wondering what kind of conversations you've had or maybe feedback you've gotten on that particular issue.
Oh, man. One minister I know said that the last barrier to true fellowship in the church is the ability to be sinners together. And I think that's true. We have got to know that one of the primary identities of the church is that we are a fellowship of redeemed sinners. Like there's sinfulness that's going to happen in the church, and everywhere the New Testament suggests that we're meant to brace ourselves for that, know that, understand that, and then roll with it. And we have to be able to, with the grace of God, deal with that and say, we are all broken. We're all being mended. We are all on this progress of being mended. And now, your struggle might be different than mine, but we've all got something going on.
Yeah, and part of my argument here, Luke, is that part of the answer that's built in is the body of Christ. And so how do I become victorious over sin? The way I become victorious over behaviors of sin especially is that I come into accountability with the body of Christ. That I can confess this, and together now I build up the checks and balances so I don't do that again. So I don't violate my relationship with my spouse or the covenant I have with my people as a pastor. And there are times the behaviors, what we've done in the church is we've so shamed people that we drive them to isolation, and that's not what the church is about.
Right. And, we have got to go back to practicing the one another's of the New Testament. Everywhere the New Testament assumes that part of what it means to be sanctified is to be sanctified as a community of people.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not just that I have my own individual relationship with God, and He is sanctifying me through His Spirit and through His Word and through prayer. he is using his tools. Some of the tools he's using are the body of Christ.
Absolutely, yeah.
To build it. So we need to practice all these things. Confess your sins to one another. Pray for one another. Encourage one another. Yeah. Build up one another. And there's dozens of these kind of commands where we see this, and it's all a part of that restoration process. And it's weird. We get this attitude all the time where we hear this kind of thing. People treat, and this is people in the church, they treat accountability like it's a last resort.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a lifestyle.
Wow.
It is a lifestyle. It's something that we're called into, not just when you've got a really bad problem like porn addiction and you got to get out of it.
Yeah.
This is something we're called into the whole of our lives. And to work together the whole of our lives, and not just on the most demonstrative sin problems or the things that are the most damaging or the most visibly taboo. We're supposed to be doing this with the whole of our lives. We've got stuff on our website if you want to go check it out. If your listeners want to go check it out, free accountability questionnaires and discussion guides.
Wow. Very good.
Where we're talking about what are those conversation pieces beyond just sexual integrity issues. What can we do to broaden that discussion so that it's about the whole of our lives?
Right.
And that's what we want to try to, a vision we want to try to.
Thank you so much for putting it that way. If you don't mind, just like reaching over and patting yourself on the shoulder, since I can't do it, I'm not doing it. It's over Skype. We can't figure that out. But this whole concept of we've preached. Thank you. There you go. We've preached personal salvation. Like that was the message of the past 100+ years of the church, and changing that culture where it becomes corporate again, where it becomes we go through this as a group. We're a community working on this to better one another. I think that is a message that is going to be. I'm no prophet. I don't feel very prophetic, but maybe this is a prophetic moment. A message that we have to reclaim as a church, or face some serious consequences. I think we're already facing some of the consequences because we haven't been. But that's a whole nother show. We could. There you go, Tony. More secretarial work.
Well, I just want to piggyback on what you said, Luke. Dr. Keith Drury recently released a book called Soul Shaper, and it's about personal spiritual disciplines. Well, he has a book that he wrote some years ago. It was called There's No I in Church. He's redoing the manuscript, and the new book's going to be called Gather, and I've had a chance privy to the manuscript, and I've gone through it and was talking with him about it. And one of the things I love about that, it's about corporate spiritual disciplines, and this is what he says in that book. You need to read the book on corporate spiritual disciplines before you ever read a book on individual spiritual disciplines. And his argument is this, that we are formed more in the body of Christ than we are in isolation.
Yes.
And that it's God's ordained way of forming us in as believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm with Matthew here. I just cheer what you just said.
Don't you think the idea of personal salvation, it's an American spin on
part of it is a Protestant reaction to Catholicism and the church and the Pope is the final authority. And so what we've done is at times we've weakened our ecclesiology as a result of that.
Yeah, interesting. This is a good discussion. We probably got something to jump into fully right now, but it's one I want to have.
All right. Well, Luke, let me just say this. I always want to try to give a guest just some like a broad highway here. There might be some dimensions or aspects of online use that we haven't touched on so far today. So is there anything that you feel like we need to highlight, or just aspects of this you want to bring out more?
Well, I know one of the issues that's really on my heart more and more anymore is the amount of user-generated pornography through things like sexting, through things like what you see going on right now, and that's connected to a lot of different issues. Most conservative stats I've seen on this are about 10% of teens are sending sexually explicit messages and photos and videos of themselves, but that's impacting all those they're sending it to. We're seeing upward range of about 30%. Sometimes some stats are saying 40% of teens are receiving these sexually explicit pictures of their peers. Now, this stuff is just impossible to deal with on a technological level. Because this is something. These are not porn website generated photos that are clearly labeled as such.
Right.
This is stuff that is being sent in a text message.
Yeah.
This is stuff that is being sent over Facebook, over Tumblr, and over Instagram. And what's happening as a result of this, and there's some major problems. First of all, I think this is a parenting issue, a big parenting issue, is that people need to see both how it's not safe to do this,
right,
on a common sense level, and how it's such a predictor of sexual attitudes in general.
Yes.
And this goes back to just how we parent our children when it comes to technology and when it comes to sexuality. But the potential for virtual slander as a result of this is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you see things right now, like for instances like slut shaming, where you've got students who are sleeping around with other students, teenagers who are doing this. They're filming it or photographing it and then putting it on Facebook for people to comment on.
Yeah. And
I was hearing news story just the other day. 8th grade boy did this, and he put a topless picture of his girlfriend for hundreds of students to see. And, of course, he gets immediate praises and pats on the back for this. She's labeled as a slut. All kinds of dirty comments are thrown at her. This is on a social media network, right? This is on Facebook. And it gets found out. He gets arrested. He just turned over to the authorities for this. And he says something to the effect of, "I regret doing what I did, but I shouldn't have to go to jail for this. I mean, after all, porn websites do this every day."
Wow.
And it's like, this is the attitude, right? It's this feedback loop. It's like, here, they consume it, and then they create it.
Oh, wow.
And then it gets really bad.
Luke,
because,
Yeah, well, let me say this. I mean, I'm sure you're well aware. One of the things we covered on our show was this whole case in Steubenville. Was it Steubenville?
Steubenville,
yeah. That was huge.
We knew that because of social media.
Yeah.
I mean, it was what these teens were producing on their little computers, on their phones, their smartphones. That's how we knew about it.
They were live tweeting their sexual assault.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I mean,
exactly.
basically.
Well, and you see, and even just recently, just a couple months ago, you see this with the cases of Rhea Parsons and Audrey Pott. These two girls, young girls, 15 and another 17, raped, and their assault was put into social media. It was seen by other people, and then they had to walk around with that. There was the blaming the victim thing going on. There was slut shaming going on. Completely demoralizes them, and they committed suicide.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time either.
No.
It's not the first time that a sexually explicit image led to slut shaming, led to demoralization, led to shaming, social shaming to the nth degree, leading to a person who completely, you've got Amanda Todd, but then you've got people like Jessie Logan and Sarah Lynn Butler and Phoebe Prince. There's tons of these girls who've done this.
Wow.
And this is so depressing to me, because this is the need for. I mean, of course, these are the demonstrative stories, right? These are the ones that make the news. How much of this is going on every day in high schools and middle schools, even all over the country, and we don't hear about it. And that's just that's sad to me. And so this is a call for parents to step up and say, you have got to steward the hearts of your children in a way that they understand what sexuality is, and the way that they understand. And I just speak to the church here. The church has to do this too. What do we need to do to teach our children what healthy sexuality is? And then, of course, with that, how does that impact our use of technology? And that, of course, deals with sexting and everything too.
Wow.
You started talking just now. Matthew and our minds went to the same place. Right now, there's an app called Snapchat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, you're aware of it. And they think that that photo's gone forever, but I can just take once it comes across my iPhone, hit two buttons, and I've got the image.
Yep.
Yeah, it is essentially, for people who may not know what that is, imagine Mission Impossible crossed with text messaging. This message will self-destruct in however long. That's essentially what it is. But it still isn't. It still isn't that. I had a conversation with parents just the other day with some parents saying, just as a reminder, there is nothing wrong with your children knowing I'll be checking what you're doing on the iPod.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just give I don't know where to go. I don't know what to say, but man, this is a good conversation.
Yeah.
It's terrible that there's an attitude within parents, and this goes to sort of a permissive level. I mean, I don't have any tolerance for it personally, but trying to be charitable here. There is a permissive kind of philosophy of parenting that where that tries to say, well, I'm going to be my kid's friend and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But the thing is that I personally, it just from a sociological perspective, it doesn't work. It's not helpful to kids to have no guardrails in their life.
Right.
They need boundaries in their life. They need to have that kind of wisdom from people. And parents should be able to say, I'm giving you this device, or you're buying this device, and I will have the passwords.
Yeah.
I will have all administrative controls.
Yeah.
I have the ability to ask you for it anytime I want, any day I want, to see what apps are on there, what you've looked for on it, what websites you've searched on it, to look at your text messages. This is not, and people say, well, this is a privacy thing. It's like, well, yeah, I get that. I get that teenagers want their privacy. I mean, we all want some measure of privacy in our lives. I understand that.
Yeah.
But we have to understand that this is something that these are people, the impulsiveness of teenagers doing this stuff over and over again and getting themselves into trouble. Parents need to be there to put the guardrails on. And there are, just in case people are misunderstanding me, there are loving and gracious and charitable ways to do that.
Amen.
That aren't just strong-handed and authoritarian.
Yes.
There are and if you pick up, there's great books on this kind of stuff all over the place. Learn what that means to do that. Put your foot down, be the parent, and love them. You got to do this for their sake.
I appreciate the candidness too, that you're even the kind of language that you're using as we talk about this issue. And it's a challenge to me in my own heart to say this is the world that we live in, and I need to start using a little bit more of this candid language from the platform that I have as a pastor in the church, dealing with families. I really, the Lord is laying a bit of conviction on me right now.
Yeah. Also, too, Luke, I would say this, like in our house, I mean, I've been blessed with an abundance of computers. Part of that is because we all have an IT friend who gets us like these free computers after they've been, after 5 years they come out of a corporation or something. But every computer I can remote into. I mean, every computer I can see what's on someone else's screen in our home, and that's just the nature, and it's just the way that we're going to do things around here. Now, I will say this, and I'm certainly not advocating this for everyone, but to me, turnabout is fair play. So I don't mind if my 15-year-old daughter remotes into my computer.
Right.
She can see what I'm surfing at any point at any time. I'm totally comfortable with that and happy with it because it's another layer of accountability for me. Now, maybe
absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, I understand that you don't necessarily want your teenager to, tap into your financial files and, mess up your QuickBooks or, whatever. I mean, I understand that you don't want that that level of control, to give them that level of control. But I know people, they get their son's accountability report, and their son gets their accountability report with CovenantEyes.
It's great.
Because they say, I have nothing to hide. You know what that also does is that they know they're not being targeted.
Yeah.
You're saying you're just doing this. You're just monitoring me because I'm a kid or because I'm a teenager or whatever.
Right.
Well, no, this is just what we do around here.
Yeah.
If mom and dad are getting each other's reports and kids are getting reports from parents are getting kids reports, and there's this kind of atmosphere of accountability. They don't feel like they're being targeted. This is just what you do. It's a culture of accountability in the home. And we could do this on the church level too. I mean, if there's people who are willing, church leaders who are willing to do this for each other,
Absolutely.
church members willing to do this for each other. It's that culture of accountability, and it really it just can change the whole atmosphere of a church around, especially around the issue of technology, which tends to be kind of cloaked in secrecy.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on this, but one of my responsibilities as a Christian and as a parent is teaching and discipling my children that part of the ways you put yourself to death, that you die to self, is you relinquish your rights to privacy in a lot of things, and you make yourself open to others, and you're open to confess, because I think we default to self-preservation. We default to defending our personal rights or whatever. And to me, part of being a Christian is the relinquishing of those rights. Now, I mean, you got 4 boys, so you know what it's like to have to. And I got 3 kids, and I'm telling you, it is. And there's a lot of growing pains in teaching them that, because to teach them that, I have to model it.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Hey,
right,
Luke.
Exactly.
Yeah,
modeling is the best way to teach.
Before we let you go, tell our listeners how they can, if they've, their interest has been piqued today, where do they need to go, and how can they get this service?
All right, great. Well, you just go to our website, CovenantEyes.com. Our services work on a variety of devices, PCs, Macs, iPhones, iPads, iPod Touches, and a lot of Android phones and tablets we work on. And really what we try to do is we're trying to be an all-in-one solution for individuals and for families. So if it's just you as a single person and you're living by yourself, CovenantEyes is for you. And if you're a mom or a dad with 9 kids, CovenantEyes is for you too. So what we try to do is we make it really easy. You go to our website, you sign up for an account. You get as many usernames as you want. So for any of the people in your house that use technology, set up a username for all of them, usernames for each of them, and then install CovenantEyes on every internet-enabled device that you have. And then what you do is you go and you can, let's say I'm the dad in the home, and I'm going to go on to my iPad and I'm going to surf around. I can log in on my iPad on my username and password. Let's say that later in the day I go to my Mac computer, or another time I go to my work computer. I can sign in with my username and password on any of those devices. All of the internet activity is compiled onto one report from me that is then sent out to whoever I've selected to be my accountability partner. So that could be my wife, and that could be, like I said before, it could be my son. It could be my pastor. It could be a mentor. It could be a good friend at church, whoever I want. And you can have as many accountability partners as you want. You can receive then accountability reports for all of your kids, for anyone in your household, or for any of your friends. If your friends have CovenantEyes, you can receive accountability reports for them. All accountability partners are free, and you can make this as customizable as you want. Like I said before, we rate websites, and so you can actually set both our filter and our accountability service to filter out or to hold you accountable to the specific ratings you want. So let's say you're receiving a report for a teenager. Set the report to the teen level, and you'll receive all the things on the report that are teen websites and higher.
Wow.
Or let's say you're an adult and you want to receive reports at the mature level, the M level, which is generally stuff that's, it's got a lot of that gray area section stuff in there, right? Let's say you want to get that. Well, you can receive everything at the mature level and higher on your accountability report and send it out. Same things with the filter. You can filter things according to those levels, and all of it's customizable. So go there, check it out. I also highly recommend check out all the free ebooks we have. We've got free webinars in there. If you just need to learn more about this subject, need to learn more about these topics of internet safety or about sexual problems on the internet or whatever, we've got a ton of information there. Go there and check it out.
All right. Well, Luke, thanks so much. So this has been great today. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Absolutely.
And
I appreciate it, guys. Thank
you.
In
the future, if if there are reports, technologies that come out that are a challenge, hey, don't be afraid to give me a call, and we'll pull you back on the show, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes, just something that you would want to make our viewers aware of.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love that. I'll remember to hit you guys up in case there's even if we got questions about technology and stuff like that. We have it's amazing. Our service has been built over the years by our members in a lot of ways. With 13 years and over 100,000 users worldwide, and even more than that, a couple 100,000 accountability partners. We get a lot of emails from people. We get a lot of messages from people saying, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Sometimes our best ideas about what to do next or what to do better come from people who use CovenantEyes. Sure. And so, we're always looking for any input we can on helping us to expand and to improve on what we do.
That's why we need that's why our idea, it does revolve around the Google Glass. And if there's a way that, the sensor bars on TV, if there was a way that the Google Glass could just, as we walk through life, we could expand CovenantEyes into the real world to where it just throws up a sensor bar right across your vision.
That would be
for real life filtering.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, I've got too many sci-fi guys in studio here with me. Yeah. All right, Luke, blessings on you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, well, there's no download of the week, and there's no they say.
Well, there is. CovenantEyes.
Download of the week.
Oh, yeah. Download of the week. Just head over to CovenantEyes.com. You can check out the resources and things that they have.
Let me just say, just as we've been preparing for today, they're just I'll use a big word, plethora of resources. They have ebooks for absolutely free ebooks you can download. That deal with kind of the individual issue, the church issue. They have webinars you can view for free dealing with all sorts of things. Absolutely encourage you to go there. Check it out. They have a 30-day, a couple of interesting things about their website, 30-day money-back guarantee. Let's say you try it, you don't like it, money-back guarantee. Also, if you're like me, you're a pastor and you're always looking for ways to make money. They actually have an affiliate program where if you we could put a banner on our site, people click on it, and you make a commission off of that. So it's a really cool thing, and just great stuff.
All right, he talked about our giveaway one more time.
That's right, the Theologian Trading Cards from Zondervan. You can go to thetechnologyshow.com/giveaway. Enter as often as you like. We're giving away 3 of these. These are some of this. You talk about a great conversation starter for your friends. Put this on your coffee table. You talk about a great way to teach your friends, and you can learn about. We're just going to pick one out of here
at random.
You can learn about Heinrich Bullinger, and learn more about him.
You can tell he and Si's just glassed over because that's the first time he's ever heard that name.
I actually saw his card earlier, and
all right.
Makes a great Father's Day gift.
There you go. Let's talk a little bit about upcoming guests. Next week we'll have Dr. Bill Peed. He'll join us, and he is a professor at Kingswood University. Also spent quite a few years in Zambia, Africa, and just going to talk about education, but also missions, what's happening in that field. On June the 25th, in studio, Dave and Donna Tolan will be with us. They work at Southern Wesleyan University. Again, they actually spent quite a few years in Zambia.
Yes.
And wonderful workers, great people. Looking forward to that. On July the 2nd, Paul Tillman is going to join us. Paul Tillman has been a loyal listener of our show and has sent me emails from time to time and always been very insightful, good stuff. And so actually picked up the phone and gave Paul a call, and just a lot of interesting things going on in his life, his ministry, and perspectives. And so we're going to bring him in for an episode.
And Paul is featured this month in the Indiana Wesleyan Alumni magazine. So
we'll talk about
only
that.
You Indiana Wesleyan alumnus would know that. Those of us who are pure Southern Wesleyan graduates.
I saw it on the internet. It has to be true.
Yeah, exactly. On July the 9th, no podcast, because guess what?
We're going to kids
camp.
We're going to kids camp. I'm so excited.
Lord help us.
On July 16th, Dr. Kenneth Skank from
Wesley. Children.
Yeah.
Help the children. Forget about us. Poor kids.
We're going to be up at 5 in the morning.
We're going to have a panel of our kids around a table. All right, kids, time to discuss the latest news. I'm pulling at camp today.
I'm pulling out theologian cards. All right, this is the card of the day. Who is he? What did he do?
That's actually not a bad idea.
All right. On July 16th, Dr. Kenneth Skank will join us. He's from Wesley. He's the dean at Wesley Seminary.
Yep.
And had the privilege of going to college with him and seminary at Asbury Seminary. Great guy. On July the 30th, Dr. Devin Smith. He's the director of the online learning for Oklahoma Wesleyan University. Had a conversation with him, which was fascinating. He'll talk about that aspect of learning. And then on August the 20th, David Higgle will be with us, and his big area of concern for years now has been the health of pastors, and very concerned about the dropout rate in the ministry. And so he's going to talk to us about just the most recent research and ideas that they have at a denominational level. How can we do a better job in helping our pastors within the ministry? All right, Heath, where can our listeners find you on the internet?
HeathMulligan.com, Heath Mullican on Twitter, Heath Mullican on Facebook, Heath Mullican everywhere.
I got one-stop shop for you. See, whereas with Heath, you got to go to all these places and type that in. If you just go to MatthewTG.com, it actually links you to every one of those
Everything
places
you need,
in a simple
everything
and
you need in the
convenient
world.
page.
Yeah.
MatthewTG.com.
Yeah.
All right, you can find me at AKC64, Twitter, and also Facebook. If you want to do further research on what we discussed today, we encourage you to head over to CovenantEyes.com. Take advantage of all the resources that they have there, and it may actually be a service that you want to use at your church, individually, in your home. So do us a favor and check them out. Also, if you want to send us an email, you can send it to the technologyshow@gmail.com, or better yet, you can leave us a voicemail by calling us at 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649. Leave us a message, and I'm just saying this, okay? I'm just throwing this out. We may even play that kind.
And it has to have been half a year since we've had the privilege of doing that. It breaks my heart. Sometimes I just think about closing down the voicemail because...
I think part of what the reason we started this is Matthew and I both have listened to tech podcasts where people will call in, they have an opinion on something.
Yeah.
Now you can't ramble on and on. Like 30 seconds is about the longest if it's going to be effective. But if you really have an opinion on something, that's why we set that up. You could call in. So it's
if we miss something,
right?
Do you have something to say?
Or if you know what we're talking, we try to do a good job of telling you what's coming up. Let's say you got a question about Zambia that you want to throw out there. Call in, and we'll play your comment, and actually you can actually be a part of the interview.
Yeah, and we joke around about calling up and praising us, but that is not what the line is for at all.
It's not.
And you may know of other services out there that deal with online filtering in a good way. Maybe that's what the line's for.
Yeah.
To just weigh in on the topic. All right. As always, we want to thank our listeners for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Adios.
Amigos.
I'm so conditioned now for a song. It's bad.
I didn't have one queued up today, guys. I'm sorry.
All right. What a great guest.
Yeah.
He was good, man.
I had the feeling yesterday when I did my test call, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good.
Are we still on?